The wildflowers had been appearing at the locked gate of Thornwood Manor for 364 mornings, and Lord Evander Northgate had watched every single one from the shadows of his study window, because the orphan girl who brought them was the only living soul who had approached his cursed estate in a decade without fear. Her name was Saffron Kelly, and she was 26 years old, though she looked older in the gray light of dawn. She had been 12 when her father's shipping company collapsed under the weight of embezzlement charges that were never proven but never forgotten. The Kelly name, once spoken with respect in London's merchant circles, now meant nothing. Saffron worked in the village laundry, scrubbing linens for families who had once invited her to their daughter's birthday parties. Every morning before her shift began, she walked the long road to Thornwood Manor with whatever wildflowers she could find along the way. Daisies in spring, wild roses in summer, asters in autumn. Now, in the dead of winter, she brought sprigs of holly and ivy, their red berries bright against the iron bars of the gate. She never knocked, never called out. She simply threaded the stems through the bars, arranged them carefully, and walked away. Evander had no idea why she did it. He had asked his steward, Mr. Pembley, to make inquiries in the village, but the answers were contradictory. Some said she was simple-minded, others said she was performing penance for her father's sins. One old woman claimed Saffron believed the manor was inhabited by the ghost of a child who had died there, and that the flowers were offerings to ease its loneliness. None of them knew the truth, that Evander Northgate was no ghost, but a vampire who had not left his estate in 30 years, and that the sight of those flowers each morning had become the only thing tethering him to something resembling humanity. On the 365th morning, Saffron did not come. Evander stood at the window as the sun rose, his hands clasped behind his back, his jaw tight. The gate remained bare. No flowers, no girl. He told himself it did not matter. She was a stranger, a mortal. Her life was brief and inconsequential, and he had no claim on her time or her rituals. But when the sun set that evening and the gate was still empty, he found himself walking through the manor's overgrown gardens for the first time in years, his boots crunching on frost-hardened leaves. He reached the gate and stared through the bars at the road beyond. The village was 2 miles away. He could reach it in minutes if he chose, but he had not walked among humans in 3 decades, and the thought of doing so now filled him with something uncomfortably close to fear. He returned to the house. The next morning there were still no flowers, nor the morning after that. On the 3rd morning, Evander sent Pembley to the village with instructions to discover what had happened to the girl. The steward returned at dusk, his expression grim. "She's been taken to the workhouse, my lord," Pembley said. "The laundry dismissed her. They said she was stealing soap." "Was she?" "No, my lord. But the accusation was enough. She has no family to speak for her, no money for a solicitor. The magistrate sent her to the workhouse yesterday." Evander felt something cold and sharp twist in his chest. "Which workhouse?" "St. Agatha's, my lord, in Ashford." Ashford was 15 miles away. The workhouse there was notorious, a place where the poor were worked to death under the guise of charity. Evander dismissed Pembley and stood alone in his study, staring at the empty gate. He told himself to let it go. The girl's fate was not his concern. He had spent 3 decades avoiding entanglements with mortals, and he would not break that rule now. But the image of her threading flowers through the gate, her fingers red with cold, her expression serene, would not leave him. He left Thornwood Manor that night for the first time in 30 years. St. Agatha's workhouse was a squat, gray building that smelled of lie and despair. Evander arrived just after midnight, when the staff had retired and the inmates were locked in their dormitories. He moved through the shadows like smoke, his senses attuned to the rhythms of the building, the creak of floorboards, the rasp of labored breathing, the faint sound of someone weeping. He found Saffron in a narrow room on the 2nd floor, one of 20 women sleeping on straw pallets. Her face was gaunt, her hands wrapped in dirty bandages. She had been assigned to the laundry here as well, it seemed, and the work had already begun to take its toll. Evander stood in the doorway, watching her sleep. She looked fragile in the dim light, her dark hair tangled, her breathing shallow. He could compel her to wake. He could carry her out of this place without anyone knowing. He could erase her memory of this entire ordeal and return her to the village as though nothing had happened. But something stopped him. She had chosen to bring him flowers every morning for a year. She had given him something without asking for anything in return. If he took her now, without her knowledge or consent, he would be no better than the people who had condemned her to this place. He left the workhouse and returned the next night with a plan. Saffron was scrubbing floors in the main hall when a man in a fine black coat entered the workhouse and demanded to speak with the matron. The matron, a thin woman with a pinched face, emerged from her office with a scowl. "I am here on behalf of Lord Northgate of Thornwood Manor," the man said. His voice was smooth and cold, and it carried through the hall like a blade. "I have been informed that you are holding a woman named Saffron Kelly." The matron's scowl deepened. "What business is that of Lord Northgate's?" "Miss Kelly is employed at Thornwood Manor," the man said. "She has been for the past year. Her absence has caused considerable disruption to the household. I am here to collect her." Saffron, still on her knees with a scrub brush in her hand, looked up in shock. She had never been employed at Thornwood Manor. She had never even seen the inside of the estate. The matron crossed her arms. "Miss Kelly was brought here by order of the magistrate. She is accused of theft." "The accusation is false," the man said, "and Lord Northgate is prepared to pay any outstanding debts or fines on her behalf. Name your price." The matron hesitated. Then she named a sum that was absurdly high, far more than Saffron could have stolen in a lifetime. The man reached into his coat and produced a leather purse. He counted out the coins with deliberate precision and placed them on the matron's desk. "Miss Kelly will leave with me now," he said. The matron looked at the coins, then at Saffron, then back at the coins. She nodded curtly. Saffron was given 5 minutes to collect her belongings, which amounted to nothing, and then she was escorted out of the workhouse by the man in the black coat. A carriage waited outside, its horses stamping in the cold. The man opened the door and gestured for her to enter. Saffron did not move. "Who are you?" "My name is Pembley," the man said. "I am Lord Northgate's steward. He has sent me to bring you to Thornwood Manor." "Why?" Pembley's expression did not change. "That is a question you will have to ask him yourself, Miss Kelly." Saffron looked at the carriage, then at the workhouse behind her, then at Pembley. She had no money, no family, and no prospects. She could refuse and return to the workhouse, or she could accept this strange offer and see where it led. She climbed into the carriage. Thornwood Manor was even larger than she had imagined. The carriage passed through the iron gate, the same gate where she had left her flowers, and up a long, winding drive lined with ancient oaks. The house itself was a sprawling Gothic structure with ivy-covered walls and tall, narrow windows that glowed faintly in the darkness. Pembley led her inside and through a series of dimly lit corridors until they reached a set of double doors. He knocked once, then opened them. "Miss Kelly, my lord," Pembley said and stepped aside. Saffron entered the room and found herself in a study lined with bookshelves. A fire burned in the hearth, casting flickering shadows across the walls. A man stood with his back to her, his hands clasped behind him, his posture rigid. "Thank you, Pembley," the man said. "That will be all." Pembley bowed and left, closing the doors behind him. The man turned, and Saffron's throat went narrow. He was tall and lean, with pale skin and dark hair that fell just past his collar. His eyes were a strange, luminous gray, and they fixed on her with an intensity that made her feel as though he could see straight through her. "Miss Kelly," he said. "My name is Evander Northgate. I apologize for the abruptness of your arrival, but I felt it necessary to intervene on your behalf." Saffron found her voice. "Why?" "Because you have been bringing flowers to my gate every morning for the past year," Evander said, "and I wish to know why." Saffron stared at him. "You've been watching me." "Yes." "For a year?" "Yes." She felt a flicker of anger. And you never thought to come out and ask me yourself? Evander's expression did not change, but something in his eyes shifted. I could not. Why not? He hesitated, and in that moment, Saffron saw something she had not expected: vulnerability. Because I am not like you, he said quietly, and I feared that if you knew what I was, you would stop coming. Saffron's anger faded, replaced by curiosity. What are you? Evander met her gaze. I am a vampire, Miss Kelly. I have been for nearly 200 years. The words settled like sediment between them. Saffron should have been afraid. Every instinct should have sent her backward. But instead she found herself thinking of the flowers she had left at the gate, and the way they had always been gone by the time she returned the next morning. She had assumed the wind had taken them, or that animals had carried them away, but now she understood. Someone had been collecting them. Why did you bring me here? She asked. Because you were in danger, Evander said, and because I owe you a debt. A debt? Your flowers, he said. They were the only kindness I have known in 30 years. I could not let you suffer when I had the means to prevent it. Saffron looked at him, at this strange, pale man who claimed to be a monster, and felt something shift in her chest. What happens now? She asked. Evander's expression softened, just slightly. That depends on you, Miss Kelly. You are free to leave if you wish. Pembley will take you wherever you want to go, and I will ensure you have enough money to start a new life. Or you may stay here, if you prefer. I can offer you employment and a place to live. The choice is yours. Saffron thought of the workhouse. She thought of the laundry, and the village, and the life she had lost when her father's name was ruined. And then she thought of the flowers, and the gate, and the man who had watched her every morning for a year without ever revealing himself. I'll stay, she said. Evander's eyes widened, just slightly. You will? Yes, Saffron said. But I have one condition. Name it. Name? I want to know why you've been hiding for 30 years, she said. And I want the truth. Evander was silent for a long moment, then he nodded. Very well, he said. But not tonight. Tonight, you need rest. Pembley will show you to your room. Tomorrow, I will tell you everything. Saffron wanted to argue, but exhaustion was pulling at her like a weight. She nodded and allowed Pembley to lead her to a room on the second floor, a room with a soft bed, clean linens, and a window that overlooked the gardens. She fell asleep almost immediately. When she woke the next morning, there was a vase of wildflowers on her bedside table. Over the following weeks, Saffron settled into life at Thornwood Manor. Evander kept his promise and told her his story. How he had been turned during the Napoleonic Wars, how he had tried to live among humans, but had eventually retreated to his estate after a series of tragedies. He did not go into detail about those tragedies, and Saffron did not press him. She was given the role of housekeeper, though the manor had few needs. Pembley managed most of the practical matters, and the staff was small, just a cook, a maid, and a groundskeeper, all of whom lived in the village and came only during the day. Saffron spent her days exploring the manor and its grounds. She discovered a library with thousands of books, a conservatory filled with exotic plants, and a music room with a pianoforte that had not been played in decades. She also spent time with Evander. He was reserved at first, speaking to her only when necessary, but gradually he began to open up. They took walks through the gardens in the evenings, when the sun had set, and he could move freely. They discussed books, music, and history. Evander was a patient teacher, and Saffron was an eager student. But there were moments when she caught him watching her with an expression she could not quite read, something between longing and sorrow. One evening, as they sat in the library, Saffron asked him about it. "Why do you look at me like that?" she said. Evander glanced up from his book. "Like what?" "Like you're afraid I'm going to disappear." He closed the book and set it aside. Because I am, he said quietly. You are mortal, Miss Kelly. Your life is brief, and mine is not. Every moment I spend with you is a reminder of what I will lose. Saffron felt a pang in her chest. Then why did you bring me here? Because I was selfish, Evander said. Because I wanted to know you, even if only for a little while. Saffron stood and crossed the room to where he sat. She knelt beside his chair and took his hand. His skin was cool, but not unpleasantly so. I'm not going anywhere, she said. Not unless you want me to. Evander looked down at her, his gray eyes searching hers. You should want to leave, he said. You should want a life with someone who can give you children and grandchildren and a future that does not end in grief. I don't want that, Saffron said. I want this. You don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do, she said firmly. I've spent the last year bringing flowers to your gate because it was the only thing that made me feel like I mattered. And now I'm here, and I matter to you, and that's enough. Evander's hand tightened around hers. Saffron, I know what you are, she said, and I'm not afraid. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Evander leaned forward and pressed his forehead to hers, his breath cool against her skin. You should be, he whispered. But Saffron only smiled. The peace did not last. 3 weeks after Saffron's arrival, a letter arrived at Thornwood Manor. It was addressed to Evander and bore the seal of the Covenant, the governing body of vampire society in England. Pembley brought it to the study, where Evander and Saffron were playing chess. Evander opened the letter and read it in silence. His expression darkened. What is it? Saffron asked. Evander set the letter down. The Covenant has learned that I have taken a mortal into my household. They are sending an envoy to investigate. Investigate what? Whether you are here of your own free will, Evander said, and whether I have broken any of their laws. Saffron frowned. What laws? Vampires are forbidden from forming attachments to mortals without the Covenant's approval, Evander said. It is meant to prevent exposure and exploitation. If they believe I have compelled you or that I intend to turn you without proper authorization, they will take action. What kind of action? Evander's mouth became a seam. They will remove you from my care, and they will place me under sanction. Saffron felt a chill run through her. Can they do that? Yes. Then we'll tell them the truth, Saffron said. We'll tell them I'm here because I want to be. It may not be enough, Evander said. The Covenant does not trust mortals to make informed decisions about our kind. They will assume I have influenced you, even if I have not. Saffron stood. Then we'll prove them wrong. Evander looked at her, and for the first time since she had met him, she saw fear in his eyes. I will not let them take you, he said. They won't, Saffron said, because I won't let them. The envoy arrived 3 days later. Her name was Lady Isolde Vane, and she was everything Saffron had imagined a vampire aristocrat would be, tall, elegant, and utterly cold. She arrived in a black carriage with 2 attendants, both of whom radiated menace. Evander received her in the drawing room, with Saffron standing beside him. Lady Vane's gaze swept over Saffron with barely concealed disdain. So this is the mortal. Her name is Saffron Kelly, Evander said evenly. And she is my guest. Your guest, Lady Vane repeated. How quaint. She turned to Saffron. Tell me, Miss Kelly, how did you come to be here? Saffron met her gaze without flinching. Lord Northgate rescued me from a workhouse. I chose to stay. Chose, Lady Vane said, her tone dripping with skepticism. And did he tell you what he is before you made this choice? Yes. And you were not afraid? No. Lady Vane's eyes narrowed. Curious. Most mortals would have fled at the first mention of vampires. Yet you stayed. Why? Saffron hesitated, then said, Because I wanted to. That is not an answer. It's the only one I have. Saffron said. Lady Vane studied her for a long moment, then turned to Evander. The Covenant has concerns, Lord Northgate. You have been isolated for decades, and now you suddenly take a mortal into your household. It raises questions. I have broken no laws, Evander said. Perhaps not, Lady Vane said. But the Covenant believes it would be prudent to separate you from Miss Kelly until we can be certain of her safety. No, Evander said, his voice hard. Lady Vane's expression did not change. This is not a request, Lord Northgate. It is an order. Saffron stepped forward. I'm not leaving. Lady Vane looked at her as though she were an insect. You do not have a choice, Miss Kelly. Yes, I do, Saffron said. And I choose to stay. Then you are a fool, Lady Vane said. Or you are under his influence. Either way, you will come with me. One of the attendants moved toward Saffron, but Evander stepped between them, his eyes blazing. Touch her, he said quietly, and I will make you regret it. The attendant hesitated. Lady Vane raised a hand. Enough, she said. Lord Northgate, you are making this more difficult than it needs to be. The Covenant's decision is final. Then the Covenant can go to hell, Evander said. Lady Vane's expression hardened. You are in violation of our laws. If you refuse to comply, we will have no choice but to take action. What kind of action? Saffron demanded. Lady Vane turned to her. Lord Northgate will be placed under house arrest, and you will be removed from his care. If he resists, he will be brought before the council for judgment. Saffron felt her heart sink. She looked at Evander, whose jaw was set, his hands clenched at his sides. There has to be another way, she said. Lady Vane's gaze softened just slightly. There is, she said. If Lord Northgate agrees to petition the Covenant for formal recognition of your relationship, they may grant an exception. But the process will take time, and you will have to prove that your bond is genuine. How long? Evander asked. 6 months, Lady Vane said. Perhaps longer. Evander looked at Saffron. She saw the question in his eyes. Was she willing to wait? She nodded. Very well, Evander said. I will petition the Covenant. Lady Vane inclined her head. Then Miss Kelly will remain here under supervision until the petition is resolved. I will assign an observer to ensure there is no undue influence. Agreed, Evander said. Lady Vane turned to leave, then paused. One more thing, Lord Northgate. If the Covenant denies your petition, Miss Kelly will be removed permanently, and you will not be permitted to see her again. She left without waiting for a response. The observer arrived the next day. His name was Mr. Thaddeus Locke, and he was a vampire of middle age with a sharp, calculating gaze. He took up residence in a guest room and spent his days watching Saffron and Evander with unnerving intensity. The weeks that followed were difficult. Saffron and Evander could not speak freely, could not touch, could not even sit too close without Locke making notes in his leather-bound journal. Every interaction was scrutinized, every word weighed. But they endured. Saffron continued to bring flowers to Evander's study each morning, wildflowers she picked from the gardens, arranged in small vases. Evander continued to read to her in the evenings, his voice low and steady, filling the silence with stories. And slowly, the months passed. When the Covenant's decision finally arrived, it came in the form of a letter delivered by Locke himself. Evander opened it in the study, with Saffron standing beside him. The letter was brief. The Covenant had reviewed the petition and the observer's reports. They had concluded that Saffron's presence at Thornwood Manor was voluntary, and that Evander had not violated any laws. However, they could not grant formal recognition of the relationship. The reason was simple. Saffron was mortal, and Evander was not. The Covenant did not recognize bonds between vampires and mortals unless the mortal agreed to be turned. Evander set the letter down, his expression unreadable. What does this mean? Saffron asked. It means we have a choice, Evander said quietly. You can stay here as my companion, but our relationship will never be recognized by vampire society. Or you can leave. and I will not stop you. Saffron looked at him. Is there a third option? Evander hesitated. Yes, but I will not ask it of you. Ask it anyway. You could choose to be turned, Evander said. But that is a decision you must make freely, without pressure from me or anyone else. And it is irreversible. Saffron was silent for a long moment. Then she said, I need time to think. Evander nodded. Take all the time you need. Saffron spent the next week walking the grounds of Thornwood Manor, thinking. She thought about her old life, the laundry, the village, the flowers she had left at the gate. She thought about her father, and the name he had lost, and the future she had once imagined for herself. And she thought about Evander, about the way he looked at her, the way he listened when she spoke, the way he had saved her when no one else would. She thought about what it would mean to stay mortal, and what it would mean to become something else. In the end, the choice was easier than she had expected. She found Evander in the library reading by the fire. I've made my decision, she said. He looked up, his expression carefully neutral. And? I want to stay, Saffron said. But I'm not ready to be turned. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I need to know that you'll still want me even if I choose to remain mortal. Evander stood and crossed the room to her. He took her hands in his gray eyes searching hers. I will want you no matter what you choose, he said. Mortal or immortal, it makes no difference to me. I only want you to be happy. Saffron felt tears prick her eyes. Then I'll stay. Evander pulled her into his arms, and for the first time in months, she felt safe. They could not be together in the way the covenant recognized. They could not marry, could not make vows that vampire society would honor. But they could be together in the way that mattered, in the quiet moments, in the shared silences, in the flowers left on the study desk each morning. And for now, that was enough. 5 years later, Saffron still brought wildflowers to Evander's study every morning. She was 31 now, her hands rougher from working in the gardens, her face marked by the passage of time in a way Evander's would never be. But when he looked at her, he saw only the girl who had brought flowers to his gate for a year without ever knowing he was watching. And when she looked at him, she saw the man who had saved her when no one else would. They had not resolved the question of her mortality. It hung between them like a shadow, unspoken but ever present. Saffron knew that one day she would have to make a choice, to grow old and leave him, or to become what he was and stay forever. But that day was not today. Today she brought him daisies, their white petals bright against the dark wood of his desk. And Evander smiled.